Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CoachesCorner.health. I am Leslie Gaudette, mindset and emotional awareness coach for women. I'm one of the co-hosts of this amazing collaboration. And how I help my clients is helping them through achieve self-awareness around their emotional trigger moments, so they have better responses, more responsive than reactive, and they don't lose time, valuable time in their day. Over to you, Andy.
Yeah, I'm Andy Lidstone. I am the unconditional coach, and I have been helping a lot of people over the past couple of years, and over the past year, I've said a lot of different things about how I help people, and what I do is I help people figure out what it is they want from their relationships, with their relationships from themselves all the way through to their partnerships, their businesses, their jobs, all of those things. I help them figure out what they want through their relationships. And I help them do that by helping them create a unique set of boundaries that aren't how we're taught, how we've been taught how to create boundaries. That's what I do. And it's powerful stuff. It has changed lives in ways you couldn't imagine. I love it. Thank you for the invitation, for the introduction. Let's get into the topic. Today we're talking about, well, let me not say what we're talking about. Let me just introduce the subject. While you're demanding to be heard, who's listening to your partner?
Yeah, that's a loaded question too.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Now, now, the default answer is the fear-filled answer that often happens in couples is, um, who's listening to my partner when I'm demanding to be heard? Well, obviously, he or she is going to go to somebody who's going to hear them, and we fear that person is a replacement for us. So if I'm a man and I'm demanding my wife listens to me, and she's not listening to me, and she's also wanting to be heard, who is she going to? Well, she could be going, we fear that she could be going to another man. That is our default fear, that she's going to another man. She's going to end up in some sort of an affair, whether it's just an emotional affair or a complete physical affair. We fear that. And that is possible. And it's not the only option I'm talking about. Where this came up for me is I had a client who came to me for help and whose spouse forbade him to come to me for help. So while she was demanding to be heard, she wasn't listening to him. So he went somewhere else, in this case to me. And she doesn't like me. So she didn't want him coming to me for help. I wasn't an affair partner, but I was somebody who was going to give him some advice she didn't want him to have. So who's listening? Who are they going to? And what is that person saying?
Yeah, and also, is it a bad thing,
Is
right?
it a bad thing?
Because if you want your spouse, your significant other, your partner to listen to you, you want to be seen, heard, and understood by them. Isn't what you want is for them to actually embody those skills. So if they don't know how to do that for you, then but you're not allowing them to develop those skills, then how is your relationship going to grow? And I think that there's a double-edged sword, because
Yep.
again, it comes down to really it's all about their own ability to trust, but also I think it's their own insecurities of how they feel about themselves as a human being. And so it's like, if
Yes.
I don't want to allow you to go outside, seek outside assistance to grow in a certain way that allows you to bring back these amazing skill sets, then we're never going to move beyond what we already have, which is something that neither one of us desires.
Correct. Yeah. That's entirely true. And that's kind of where I was coming from with this conversation. Although at the same time, it does also include the possibility of affair partners, right? So it's a large conversation. And sometimes we want our partners to rely exclusively on us for their development. I can help you change because I don't trust somebody else to help you change in the way I want you to change. And that requires that you change in the way I tell you you have to. And that doesn't work. that's only going to lead us to have the same conversations we've been having. So sometimes we do need to go outside of our relationship to get that support. And if we don't trust our partner to do so, that isn't a problem our partner has. That's a problem we have. There are things we can do to build that trust, that we can do so that we trust them. And at the same time, if they're doing things that we can't trust, that aren't trustworthy, as in they have shown that they're going to go have affairs, if they have shown that they're going to go to a replacement version of me, then maybe I shouldn't trust them. And how do we know? How do we find out the difference? This is where this conversation leads. And quite honestly, the easiest place to start is, if you're demanding to be heard, you're not listening to your partner. Your partner's not going to feel heard while you're demanding to be heard. If you want to be heard, you might just have to shut up and listen first.
Yeah, and I think relationships are so complex, like especially when it comes to ourselves, like being
Yeah,
okay to say, I'm good as by myself. I don't, it's not that we don't need other people, because we're not born to go through the world through life by ourselves, but
that's right.
I truly believe that if we can actually be confident and comfortable to sit alone with our thoughts and our feelings, so that we can get more clear on the things that we want and what we don't want, and what we're going to bring to the table, our expectations, what we think makes a great relationship, then we are able to have that better dynamic with other people. But I think that what I'm hearing from a lot of women too, and not necessarily women that I don't necessarily go in this particular area of assisting them. I show them ways of working within, but I think what I'm hearing is there's the fear of being able to let go
Yes.
of control over another human being's decision process, or where they decide to go and seek that external, validation around something, someone to lean on and talk to. And I think it's about having trust that, with especially in that relationship, that if they need to seek outside assistance with something, then uh, you have to be in a place, I think, where you can trust that they're sharing what they need to in order to be able to bring back to the relationship a stronger version of themselves. And I can say that just speaking from experience. My husband and I, we do have a lot better communication skills than we have in the past. We've been married 26 years, so not all of the 26 years have we had great communication skills, but of late, the last few months, really, we have become more in tune with how we communicate with each other. And I think one of the things that really was helpful was I said to him one day, I said, listen, I need you to talk about whatever is going on that has got you, whether you're feeling depressed, sad, uncertain, unsure, no clarity, whatever that is for life. And if it's not me, I just want you to talk to somebody, because I would rather him get it off his chest than having it weighing him down. And all that does is it puts pressure on our relationship, where I'm constantly thinking, well, what's going on with him? And it's keeping me from living my life,
Yeah.
doing the things that I need to do in order to be the best version of me. And
Yeah.
so if I understood, I recognized that I might not always be the go-to person, and that is
Yeah.
okay. And that's the
Yeah.
same for me. I don't go to him with everything. I have some trusted people that I talk to. You're one of them. We've talked
Yeah.
about specific things, but I feel comfortable and confident in these relationships that I've built with people to share. And I realize the value in that. And so I've been able to say to my husband, listen, if you need to talk to somebody that's not me, I'm okay with that, because I'd rather you get it off your chest than you
Yeah.
carrying it around as a burden. So it's
Yeah.
really recognizing the value in allowing that freedom for your significant other or person in your life to express themselves, if it's not with you, with someone else, so they come back with a
Yeah.
better version of themselves in your relationship.
Yeah. And that's it right there. It's they so that they can come back to their relationship as a better version of themselves, so that they can participate in making the relationship stronger, which is something they want, and it's something you want, right? It's We want to make our relationships better. We do. We're not okay with just stagnant. We sometimes talk. We sometimes hang out. We sometimes make love. We sometimes snuggle on the couch. But most of the time, we're just avoiding a fight. And none of us are okay with that. Nobody wants that. And a lot of us don't know what we can do about that, because most of us think that we have to resolve that just between the two of us. And there's the problem. The the dynamic that is causing the problem is not the dynamic that's going to fix the problem. Unless something changes in that dynamic, the problem's not going to fix. And without going outside that dynamic, you can't change the dynamic. One or both of you have to go outside the dynamic in order to evolve something, in order to have a different way of thinking about it, in order to have a different way of looking at it, in order to have someone guide you to a different perspective. And that can be, obviously, that can be us life coaches. This is something we specialize in, but it doesn't have to be. A lot of guys don't want to reach out for this kind of help. This is something I've been noticing over the past few years of coaching guys. But what they expect is they expect their friends and family to be able to help them. That's okay. If you have somebody that you can trust, that you can go to, and if you don't, find somebody that you can trust or go to. And if you can't find somebody, pay somebody, because that's what we do for a living. And find somebody that you can go to that isn't your partner, because until you change the dynamics of how you're solving the problem, you won't solve the problem, because the dynamics inside the relationship is what's caused the problem. And on the other side of that conversation, if your partner needs somebody to talk to and they're feeling frustrated talking to you, it's important to not just give them permission to go outside the relationship to get help, but to make the suggestion, make it okay, and make it a not just okay, but make it a good thing. Thank you for going outside this relationship to get help. Thank you for going outside and talking to your buddy, talking to your father, your mother, your brother, your therapist, your life coach, whoever it is, talking to somebody that you trust. Thank you for doing that, because now you can come back to the relationship as a better version of you. And thanking them even before they've become a better version of themselves is the most important step, because the act of them going outside the relationship to get support will lead them to a better version of themselves, whether you see it or not. So it's important to encourage them. Most of the time, our insecurities stop us. I don't want you airing my dirty laundry. I don't want you sharing our dark secrets with the world. Or I don't want to share our dark secrets with the world. Unfortunately, you have to in order to grow, because those dark secrets are there because you're trying to solve the problem with just the two of you. And you can't. The dynamic that caused it can't solve it. You have to add in a different factor. One of you has to go outside the relationship, possibly both of you.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, especially too because I know how I told you how my dynamic in my relationship is working. I think it's not only that you're giving them permission, but you're giving permission to yourself to
Yes.
trust, right?
Yes.
Because that's the piece of it. Again, you talk about the dark secrets. We all have secrets. We all have baggage that we carry with us, but we don't all have to carry these things as burdens over our lifetime without resolving them. Because if you're the type of person who's in relationships where you find it's the same pattern being repeated over and over again, and how your dynamic of your relationship is, and you find that you go through that honeymoon stage, then you get into that stage of, well, you start picking apart everything, and then you break up and you move on to the next rinse and repeat kind of relationship. That means that you're not really growing from that, and you're not allowing yourself to really move through it. It's like it's the hardest things bring some of the hardest things I've found in relationship mending for myself have been the hardest lessons that have allowed me to realize what I'm capable of and being able to move through those things, coming out the other side a better person.
Yes.
I'm not saying I think that you have to go through hardships all the time, but relationships are not easy. When you've heard the
Yeah.
term marriage is work, it is. It
Yeah.
is work because you're working on yourself to continuously be that person, to show up for the person that you have in your life. You don't have a relationship where then you decide you settle in and that's it. You just don't care about the other person anymore. You just kind of settle in and take for granted that, well, they accepted me as this, but then there's no room for growth because over time we do change. It's
We
just a
change.
fact of life. We go through experiences and
Yeah.
we change. So it's up to us to do put in the work, meaning we change, we go through the process together, we talk about things, we
Yeah.
work things through so that we're not repeating the same patterns, so that we're allowing each other the freedom to express our feelings, our thoughts, even if we don't agree with them. And
Mhm.
if we can't, especially in those moments, you don't want to always be the go-to person. It can be very, very taxing.
Yes.
Trust me, I can tell you this from experience. So I do want my spouse to go outside of our relationship, to talk to other people. Some of his really, he's got a really close guy friend that he talks to, and that's the person I would love. Yeah, share that because I can't always be the go to because I'm not always going to be able to do it. And I might be too close to the fire. So
Yes.
it's better to actually have someone else who's looking from the inside out. Again, we talk about coaches. We both have our own coaches. I
Yep.
believe in coaching. I love coaching. We
Yep.
also support each other. We're a part of coaching communities. We support each other. But
Yep.
that's because we understand this, that sometimes you just can't do it by yourself. And so
Yeah.
you need to have somebody else outside of your exact situation that's not already in it with you, who doesn't
Yeah.
really have the emotional connection to it and can
Right.
help you move through it. So, and then the other piece was, appreciating the fact that you have to talk about it, like being able to appreciate the fact that he or she, your significant other, is saying, look, these are the things that I'm thinking and feeling, and you might not agree with it, and I'm finding that there's too much of this headbutting. So I need to talk to somebody, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that with you. And not to take that in a personal level where you become combative or defensive, but rather then you have the opportunity to say, yeah, reach out to your good friends, somebody that you trust, someone that you know that holds us, our relationship with respect, so that you can reach out to them, because you also want to make sure that that's part of the dynamic.
Yeah.
And that also leads to the third thing, which is one of the love languages is words of affirmation. If you are familiar with the five love languages, and one of them is words of affirmation, and I believe that it doesn't always have to be someone's primary love language, but I think everyone has a version of words of affirmation as part
Yeah.
of their love language. And so being able to affirm to your partner that, this is good. I appreciate that you came to me. I want you to find this release of, your tension and being able to like get things off your chest. Maybe it's too close to home with us. I know that you're doing this so that we can have a better relationship.
Yeah.
Being able to do that and showing that you trust them in that, and that you appreciate them in that, and that they also feel comfortable and confident, but it's not going to come back to haunt them later when you say, well, you went and talked to so and so. You want to make sure that that is really how you truly feel. So
Yeah.
that is getting that's where you actually have to do some inner work for yourself. And
Yeah.
I think we can all learn from that. But yeah, these are just some of the things that I got from what you had shared.
Yeah. And like you were just saying, that inner work, um, being okay with them going outside your relationship is is a matter of inner work. If you don't trust them to go outside of your relationship to get the support they need because you think they're going to be cheating on you, or you think they're going to be talking to somebody who doesn't respect the relationship, or you believe that they're going to be getting bad advice, if you don't trust them to go outside the relationship, as I mentioned before, and as you just said, that isn't a problem with them. That's a problem that you can deal with. That is the problem that we can deal with. Myself, yourself, we can deal with. Because until I can learn to give my partner the freedom to do what he or she needs to do, until I can give them that freedom, I can't be the partner I want to be for them. I can't give them that safety, that security, that love, that caring, that compassion that I want to give to them, that heart that I want to give to them. I can't give that to them unless I'm giving it to them in choice, in options, unless they believe that what they want is an option. You and I are a great example. We have a brilliant partnership. We love what we do together. We really create well. And yet, I don't solve all of your problems and you don't solve all of mine. We have a brilliant dynamic where we do solve some of each other's problems. We help each other. You give me some advice, I give you some advice, and we work through some stuff together, and we do solve some problems, right? This is a relationship. And I don't expect you to be my every solution, and you don't expect me to be yours, right? We are willing to go outside of our partnership to solve business things. I mean, what we're doing is running a business together. We are still going outside of this relationship to solve those business things. And that's the example that we're using of how we do this in romantic relationships too, right? It's because we've known we can do this in romantic relationships, in partnerships, in business partnerships, in work life, in any kind of a relationship, that we're able to bring it to this relationship. It's why we're able to rely on each other for the strengths that we have, and and take everything else to those who have different strengths, to somebody else who's not within this partnership. There are people I go to that you don't know, and people you go to that I don't know. And that's the point. It's not supposed to be in a closed circuit of people. We're supposed to be two people who are working together to build something, and that we each have a support network that we bring to that. You don't use my support network, I don't use yours, but we both have the strength of those networks that we bring to this relationship. And it's the same thing in your marriage. Your husband has a support network outside of you that isn't your support network, and you the same. You have a support network outside of him that isn't his support network. It's the same concept. And this is the importance of being able to go outside of our relationships to be able to solve these problems, because only by doing so can we then bring the strength of a team, the strength of a network of people, and that network is what makes our relationships stronger. That's where the strength comes from, not from the individual people. Two hearts aren't nearly as good as two hearts surrounded by 30 others.
Mhm. Yeah, it takes a village. I've been to, as an example, I've been to some weddings where the I don't know, maybe if it was a Catholic wedding, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I remember some weddings where the priest would ask the congregation if they would support the bride and the groom.
Yeah.
It became a community support, like a dynamic where he was asking for them to acknowledge that they would support these two young people who decided to get
Yes.
married and who decided to do life together, that they would support them on their journey. And so I really love that whole idea of creating already that bond, like saying, okay,
Yeah.
listen, this is like your community, they're going to support you. It's the
Yeah.
same thing as in relationships, and even like beyond romantic relationships and friendships, it's still having communities that support one person, each person, that they
Yes.
can, and especially if they're strong communities, that's what they're surrounding themselves with, that allows them to come to that relationship even stronger. Because
Yes.
I do believe that we are meant to go through life together. People are not meant to be disconnected from one another. But I
Yes.
think it can be really super easy to step away from relationships and say, well, I give up because it's not working out. And just decide that you don't want to put in the work. And again, like I said, being married for as long as I have, it was not like, oh, we got married and it was like the Cinderella or Snow White fairy tales where you rode off into the sunset and nothing ever went wrong. I mean, life just
I'm sure
happened.
you've rode off into the sunset.
Yeah, we have, but I mean, it's
Yes.
not like it's not perfection. There's always
Right.
been there has been struggles, ups and downs, but you go through it together. It can make you stronger if you choose, and it comes down to choice too, because I believe that part of this allowing each other to seek external advice, provided that you have this trust in one another and you have this trust in yourself,
Yeah.
that and I think that's part of it too, is just being able to trust yourself that the decision you make, saying to your partner, I know that we can't work this out together right now, but let's see what we can find on the outside and bring it back to the dynamic and work it out. But I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about as we're talking about this, you mentioned it earlier about one of your clients, how his significant other did not want him coming to you. And that's one of the things I was curious about. Like, what do you do in that area? Because my personal thought to that is it could be extremely difficult for a relationship if one partner doesn't like one of the person that their significant other is going to for advice. So how there I think becomes the question of having a discussion around that, because it's not about, and I think it's really talking about, like, it's not about you getting advice externally from our relationship, but it's the people that you choose to talk to that may not have our best interests at heart because they don't like me.
Right.
Maybe that's how you approach the conversation, but that's got to be one of the difficult ones.
It is. It is. And that's the whole point is we need to do our own work so that whoever they go to, we can trust. The idea here comes down to, why are they going outside the relationship in the first place? The story we tell ourselves, the reason we tell ourselves they're going outside of the relationship, affects that trust. If I'm telling myself that he or she is going outside the relationship, my partner is going outside the relationship because he or she doesn't trust me, well, then it doesn't matter who they go to. Because if they trust that person more than me, then that person is a threat. Doesn't matter if it's a guy or if it's a girl, if it's a romantic possibility or if it's not. It doesn't matter if it's a counselor or a therapist or God himself. It doesn't matter who it is. Because if I believe that my partner trusts that person more than me, then that person is a threat to our relationship. If, however, I believe that my partner is going to that person because that person has a different perspective, then it doesn't matter what that person's intentions are. Even if the person they're going to doesn't like me and wants us to break up, my partner can go to them, get the advice, the suggestions, the help, the support, and then come back, because it's not about what the other person wants, it's what my partner wants. My partner wants to make our relationship stronger. My partner is choosing to be with me. And if he or she is not choosing to be with me, why am I fighting so hard? But they have chosen to be with me. So either I trust that choice or I don't. And if I do trust that choice, then it doesn't matter who they go to and what that person's intentions are. Because even if they go to somebody who wants us to break up, they're still going to get some kind of support that brings them back stronger. And what I know is, if somebody's trying to break up a relationship I'm in, I'm not going to be less certain about that relationship. I'm going to dig my heels in and say, yeah, I'm not leaving. I don't care what she does. I'm staying. You want me to leave? Yeah, that ain't happening. All the advice you gave me isn't happening. However, that does support me because now I know why I'm there. All the things that person is saying to get me to leave is helping me to see all the things that I love about her. So even somebody who isn't supportive of the relationship can help him or her build his security in the relationship. You don't need to trust that person. Do you trust your partner? Are they going outside the relationship because they don't trust you, or because they trust that person more, or because they simply need a perspective you can't give them? It's all about the story you tell yourself about why they're going outside the relationship.
Yeah. And I just love the fact that you're so optimistic about things. It's amazing because you can take like the worst scenario, possible scenario and turn it into something still positive. You know, like someone doesn't like one of the people in the relationship, but you can look at it from a different perspective that even though they may not like me, it doesn't mean that they're going to sway my partner's decision because
Right.
that's up to him and our dynamic of our relationship. And but then again, you know, if it does sway, then obviously there's other things
There
at
is some
play.
other factor involved in the first place.
But I do love the fact that you're able to bring that to a more positive. No, and I love that because you do
I've
that.
experienced
You
it.
do that often, and I think that's
Yeah.
great. And I think the reason why I like that is because people tend to like go to that place where, oh well, if he or she doesn't like me, he or she's going to automatically tell my significant other to leave, and he is going to leave because he's going to believe her over me or him over me, and you're automatically putting that in your head. So it's really, again, it still comes down to doing the work
Yes.
yourself. You still have to, even if he's going outside. As an example, I'm using myself as an example because I want you as our listeners to understand this is real stuff that we talk about from
Yes.
experience, from people we know. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I have had found was, you know, as I said, being married as long as I have, and some of our time together, we really didn't have really good open communication. We had in the beginning, but we had lost it along the way because life happens.
As often That's often what happens in mature relationships. That's
Yeah,
often what happens.
and so I found myself, and he always kind of been this way throughout our relationship, but it didn't really start to. It bothered me, but it didn't really start to bother me in a way where I wanted more change, meaning I wanted change so we could stay together rather than looking for a way out. Because I mean, to be truth be told, I was looking for a way out previous, you know, a few years ago because things were always, I always felt that this was the dynamic and I didn't want to deal with that anymore.
Hmm.
But over time, realizing that this person in my life has these um, things that he has to think through, he mulls them through. And I realized that when he needed to do this on his own time, I felt like I was being shut out
Hmm.
and didn't understand that dynamic, right?
Right.
Until having conversations around it, saying, oh, well, this is his process, his way to process. And so knowing that it was his way to process things, I realized that I could either let I could either let that derail our relationship, and you know, ultimately we don't stay together, or
Right.
I could allow us to have conversations, allow myself to have a conversation around it, saying, I know you need to talk to somebody, and if it's not me, I just want you to talk to someone. That was number one. And also, I put a boundary up for myself, a boundary that was healthy, that supported my well being. And it simply was, when he gets into these friends of mine, which he still does sometimes, it's not always he's coming to me with everything, but it's better.
Yep.
But when that happens, I detach from the, oh, it's all about me not getting what I need because he won't share, but
Right.
rather I detach from it and say, when he's ready, he will come and we will
Right.
talk about it. That was
Yeah.
very hard, but
It
because
is.
in the beginning, like years before. It was very hard to do that because I always took it as, well, why won't you talk to me again? Being, why aren't you talking to me? Don't you trust me? And then all of a sudden I would feel, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I would feel like all of a sudden he would just spring it on me, and it would be like, whoa, I felt blindsided. Whereas now I understand his process,
Right.
and we've created a new process where we do talk a lot more than we used to because he feels comfortable because he knows I'm in this space. He knows he
Right.
feels comfortable because he understands. I told him, in our relationship, I am not Coach Leslie. I am your wife. So I'm not going to be bringing that to the dynamic. And so
Right.
that allows him to say, oh, she's not going to be trying to fix me from a coaching perspective, but rather just
Right.
listening to me to understand. And that was
Yeah.
like something, it was hard in the beginning. So I wanted to bring that up because, some people might have, that thought like, well, why won't he talk to me? And why is he keeping it in? And why does he go to other people? It could just be that right now he might not feel confident to bring it to the relationship because
Yeah.
maybe previously, which I can attest to, previously it was about, oh, it became more of an emotional attachment for me around him not sharing.
Right.
Whereas now
Right.
it's no longer that. So if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. And I like that. One of the things that I've been doing recently is listening to those why questions. Why isn't he talking to me? Why doesn't he bring it to me? Because when we say those things, they're not questions, but the grammatical functionality of the words are definitely a question. Why doesn't he do this? So what I've been doing lately is I've been writing down the question as the question I said in my head. Why is this happening? Why isn't this happening? Why isn't he or she doing this or this? Or why is he or she doing this or this? Writing it down as that question. Because when you write it down as the question, you realize that it is a question and that it can have answers. And because it's a question that can have answers, our default answers is because of shit I did, because it's something I did wrong. And once we realize it's a question, we can change the answer. Right? That's what I've been doing lately is just why does he do it this way? Well, I understand that was a rhetorical question, but actually think of it as a question and answer it. Because the answer you're going to come up with is going to introduce you to your limiting beliefs. It is going to introduce you to your part of the equation
Mhm.
because he doesn't trust me, because he doesn't love me, because I'm not important to him, because. Well, actually, yes, that is possible. And is it possible there's a different answer? Is it possible that he just mulls shit over for a while? Is it possible that he doesn't trust himself to say it the right way? Is it possible that he's scared of hurting your feelings? Is it possible that he actually thinks he's kind of dumb and doesn't like saying things out loud? These are all thoughts guys have told me that isn't what she thinks it is. And a lot of women who ask those questions, not all women and not even most women, but a lot of women, a good percentage of women who ask those why does he questions think they know him better than he does. I've actually had women, I know him better than he does. Know him better than he knows himself. Really? Do you?
I love that. Yeah. Just like I said to you the other day before when we were learning to really communicate, our communication skills, my husband and I, and he would try to finish my sentences, and I would say, well, you haven't let me finish what I was about to
Right.
say. And he would say to me, but I already know what you're going to say. And I just turned to him one day and I said, no, you don't, because you're not in my head. So how can you know? But again, I love the fact that you brought that up because I think the why questions puts us in a solution focused, mode.
Exactly
You
that.
start looking for the answers. You start looking for answers to your questions. But then, asking, does it have to be true? Well, not necessarily. So, is there another answer? Is it possible? Again, I love it. Is it possible that maybe he needs to mull it over? Well, in my case, yes, it was. Is it possible that maybe he doesn't know how to say it out loud? I think in this case, for me, in some of these areas, yes, it was. But when you allow yourself to put it outside of yourself, I like to talk about laying it on the table, kind of like as an external question. It's not my problem, it's a problem I need to solve or want to solve. So it's not a problem, it's not my problem anymore. Because I think a lot of the things is that people take that on, like, oh, well, he's not talking to me, so it must be me. I have a problem, must be my
Yes.
problem, something about me, why he won't share. Like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, he doesn't love me, he doesn't respect me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's true. But that's just what we're thinking because we are
Those are the
attaching.
answers that you've created to that
Right.
question.
And because those answers are also fueling emotions, the emotional part to it as well. So if
Yes.
you can step outside and say, you know what, let me put this question on there. I'm going to write all these questions down, like you said. Now I'm going to put. I like to say, as I said, I take my notepad and I'll put it on the table and I'll say, well, those are the questions I want to answer today. So what are the questions to those problems that are no longer my problems, but they're problems that I want to solve? And when I learned to do that, I think it was very liberating because
Yeah.
you're no longer attaching it to yourself as an
Yeah.
identity thing. And I think that's part of the equation here when it comes to someone seeking outside advice. It comes down to your identity. Like, what does that say about me if he can't
Yes.
come to me or she can't come to me?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the truth. It's an identity question, and this is why I've started writing down those questions and asking my clients to write down those questions, because this is the problem. It's an identity issue. I'm telling myself that because he doesn't come to me, I'm not worthy. He doesn't love me. I'm not good enough. My personality is conflicting, or there is some major character flaw, or sometimes it's a physical flaw in me. And and I can identify those. And he clearly can see them even better than I can because he's reacting to them all the damn time. But is he? Is he really? And this is where I have been able to make some major shifts both in my life and help my clients do the same things. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I've been helping more women lately, women who are in the situation you have been in with your husband. And I've been helping them to make those shifts and answer those questions. Is it really that the case, or is it really that he's feeling a bit insecure, or maybe a lot insecure? And it's been extremely liberating for these women to lose the pressure of it being all their fault. Right? It doesn't have to be all your fault. As a matter of fact, it's probably not all your fault. There might be a smidgen that you can take responsibility for, work with somebody to help get over, and that smidgen is probably less than 20%, likely less than 10%. Most of it's probably things that are going on in his mind about his own insecurities. I'm not worthy. I'm not this. So when two people who aren't worthy get together, they blame each other for their own insecurities. And that's what happens. This is how we can fix relationships. We can deal with our own damn insecurities so that I'm not blaming them on him or blaming mine on her. And that's what we can do. This is what this conversation is all about. While you're demanding to be heard because you have insecurities, you're demanding she listen to your insecurities and address those insecurities. You're demanding that he listen and pay attention and stop talking about his stuff. While you're demanding that, who's listening to his needs? Who's addressing his insecurities? Who's helping him or her or your partner or your friend or your mom or your dad or your children? Who's helping them get over their stuff? While you're demanding your partner help you, who's helping them? Who's giving them what they're looking for? Because trust me, if it isn't you, they can find it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what leads to the end result that we always jump to when I ask this question. That's what leads to cheating. That's what leads to emotional affairs. That's what leads to all of these friends who tell us that you're just in a bad relationship. This is what leads to so many people giving us bad advice, because we've been hearing you talk about how this relationship's been hard for so long that we don't think it's good for you anymore.
Mhm.
And if you would simply let us support you in staying in the relationship, which we want to do, you can get over that. You can learn to heal some of those insecurities, learn to show up for your partner the way you want to, the way he or she wants you to. And when you do so first, you can help them do that too. You don't have to both do it at the same time. That's the hard part. Doing it when they're not.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Ask Leslie. She knows all about that.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. You and I talked about this in a separate conversation. So one of you is on a self-development, journey. You're
Yeah,
learning about yourself and you want to be different. But
I have a client that's like that.
yeah, but what's happened is it's you have two of you, but only one of you is doing the work.
Right.
And so that person who's doing all the work has now become a different version, a better version in their eyes of themselves,
Yeah.
because they wanted to better themselves. But what ends up happening is that other person, you start looking at them differently, hoping that they're going to come along on the journey with you, but they don't understand particularly because they may feel, and they might not voice it, they might, that you didn't ask them if it was okay for you to go on this journey. And I
Right.
know that sounds ridiculous for you to have to ask them if you can do self development. But think about it this way: if you got into a relationship, like I said, I've been married 26 years now. When I married my husband 26 years ago, I wasn't the same person as I am today, as far
Yeah.
as like my strength in my conviction, being confident in who I am. I wasn't as confident in that, especially when it comes to relationships. Now I am. But I decided that I was going to go on this journey. And this is almost 5 years ago.
Yeah.
My husband didn't go on the journey with me. I didn't ask him, do you mind if I go on this journey? So I just took it upon myself to do it. And I told him, I said, buckle up. I'm going to be making some changes and I'm going to start putting myself out there and doing things. And I mean, I literally did say that.
Right.
But
Right.
now I'm a different human being, and that could have caused some of the friction in our relationship because now I'm at a completely different frame of mind, very comfortable, confident, self aware, and I'm not allowing other things that used to cause reactions from me, but I'm more responsive. I'm more consciously aware of how I'm responding to things. I take my time, whereas before I would be reactive. And that's a different human being than he used to be with. And so he's now like looking at that and he's now starting to come around because he's seen me doing this work. He's seen me helping other people. He's seen me be consistent. It hasn't just been a fad type thing.
Right.
But again, when you take that journey, and especially if you're new in the journey, this other partner in your life is sitting here the same, and yet you are changing. So you got together at a different place in life, and now you're changing into a newer, better version of you. So where does that leave that person? And that, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that it is my responsibility as the person going through this journey to talk it through with my significant other, to let them know I'm not leaving you behind. This is for, I'm being a better version of me, for us, for our dynamic of our relationship, for myself as well,
Yeah.
like how I
Yeah.
want to show up in the world. And that is you're going to benefit from that. And
Yeah.
so when they can feel confident, maybe this is a way for you to help them feel confident that they can come along in this journey with you. That it's not a forced your way or no way
Yeah.
decision. That it's not a demand or an expectation, but rather an invitation to
Yeah.
join you on this new adventure that you're on,
An
and
invitation that they can refuse.
that they can refuse, but in allowing them to make that choice for themselves
Yes.
and being able to be okay that you still can work on you and you take care of you and you still show up as the
Yeah.
person that you want to be. And eventually, at some point, they might get sick and tired of being sick and tired in the way that they are, and they might
Yeah.
change. They might not. But again, this is not about them changing. This is
Yeah,
not about you making them change. It's about you showing them the possibility of what their life could be like if they want to make changes in
right.
their life. But again, it's coming back to it comes back again to this whole thing about who's listening to your partner, because there is this thing about self-development, I think, that then you start going through these steps and these changes, and you look at your partner in a different way, and you might be expecting them to do just automatically to become this different person that you expect them to be because you are.
Yeah,
And yet again, the whole question of, I didn't sign up for self development world. You did. And so being able to do that, and that comes back to who's listening to them, because they might be voicing that concern,
yeah,
but you might not be listening. And
yeah.
so I wanted to throw that in there because I just thought it kind of made a little.
It
It was
does.
off a little bit, but it kind of still tied in because I realized I've been on this journey for almost 5 years, and he's finally coming around to
Yeah.
this, but it wasn't because I demanded it, and it wasn't
Right.
because I told him he had to. It was because he started, I think, seeing these changes that he was benefiting from, that really allowed him to start looking at his life in a different light and wanting to make changes for himself.
Well, and exactly that. So at some point, as you're changing, as you're evolving, as you're becoming the woman you want to be, and you're not the woman he's used to being with, at some point he's going to be making at least subconsciously, if not also completely consciously, making a choice. Do I like this new woman? Do I want to still be with this new woman? Right? Is she actually becoming somebody that I want to be with? Right? And once he makes that decision, and not until he makes that decision can he then start seeing the benefits that you're bringing. You might be so much more of everything he wanted, but unless he tells himself he wanted those things, he might not be ready for those changes. Right? I'll use a hypothetical situation. There are plenty of guys who like certain body styles in their girls they date. Some of those guys like larger women. There are a certain segment of the population of guys who like larger women. Well, let's say they start dating, they love each other, they go through the honeymoon stage, they get married, they end up living together and raising some kids together. And after she's had 3 kids, she decides she wants to get fit. But he likes larger women. So she's going to change to become a healthier, better version of herself. And he has to decide, do I like fit women? Do I like my wife as she's fit? When actually I preferred her when she was a little larger. He has to then decide, do I like this new version of my wife? Now, all the things aside that might make a guy want a larger woman, all that aside, he's not doing the personal development. He's not getting fit. He's not doing all the things that he could do to keep up with her. He might be, but he might not be. So when she becomes the healthy, better version of herself that she's always wanted to be, does he still want to be with that? This is a choice that we have to make. And what a lot of us don't realize when we're going through changes, when we're becoming better versions of ourselves, we don't realize that maybe our partner doesn't like the changes we're making. They might be positive for us, but they might not think they're positive for them. So, and that's like you said, we should have conversations about that. And maybe the thing that they don't want to do, maybe the development they haven't made is having those conversations. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe they're not good with talking. Maybe the personal development that you have gone through is your communication skills, and you're much better at them now than you were before. But he hasn't, right? So sometimes that talking about it is the problem that he's having. So the question becomes, can you grow, be happy in your own body, be happy with who you are, and still let him decide if he's happy. Still let him decide if it's what he wants, and let him acclimatize to this new version of you. Get used to this new version of you. Decide that this new version of you is something he wants. Because I promise you, if you allow him instead of pressuring him, very rare would be the guy that doesn't want an improved version of his wife. But most of these guys fell in love with a different version of you. So they don't know how to love the better version of you. So they have to learn how to do that. And they don't know how to do that, and they don't trust themselves to ask you how to do it. So this is part of what you're saying. When you're listening to them, or when you're demanding to be heard, when you're demanding that he's, when you're demanding that he's doing the things that he has to do to love the new you, who's paying attention to what he actually wants? Is he going to go find himself another larger woman who can't communicate? He
Because
might.
that's it. Because that is exactly what I wanted to bring it around to. Because again, we all have our own version of what it means to be heard. What we're demanding to be heard around. For her, it was, look, I want to be fit. This to me will make me happy. I'm doing this for myself,
Yeah.
and I want you to be okay with it. But I didn't give him the. I didn't ask him. I didn't think that it was his choice. It was mine. So being okay with the fact that, okay, I've now developed into this newer person.
Yeah.
Now I have to allow time for him to grow into liking, being, and evolving and living with this newer version of me, and what, so he can decide what if he likes this newer dynamic, or if he maybe doesn't like who he is and he wants to make some changes.
Right.
But and then again, it came down to, you're not I'm you're not sharing. I feel shut out. I felt that way, and I thought, I need to make a boundary. Number one is, I need to make sure that when you get into this moment, first I'm going to tell you this, which is, I want you to talk to somebody. And if it's not me, at least talk to somebody, because that way you get it off your chest. And I shared that with him. And then I said, and that's my only life coaching skill that I'm going to drop on you. But I said, I come to you as your wife only. And I said, but going beyond that, I made a boundary for myself, which was, he gets into these moments where he doesn't share. I know something's going on, and I will just give him the space to decide when he feels confident enough to bring it to the table, because I can then release the emotion that I was tying to it, that there was something wrong with me,
right,
the reason why he wouldn't share. When you can release yourself from that, it's such a liberating moment.
Exactly.
Because you're no longer carrying that I don't know, guilt, but it's burden. You feel like you don't have that wordiness thing that you put on yourself, like, I'm not worth, he doesn't care about me. So
right, yeah, that's exactly the truth. It's about are you taking on his shit and making it yours?
Yeah.
You don't have to be. You can let him have it. He wants it, and he's trying to deal with it. And when he gets to have it all by himself, he can learn how to deal with it. When you take some of it from him, he can only deal with the part you left him with. Right? It's all about that. And I loved how you brought that around. I loved how you brought that into the conversation, because that is really, honestly, that's the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
When we go through stuff, when we change, when we evolve, sometimes he's not ready for that. That doesn't mean he doesn't love you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, once most guys have some time to adjust to the new you, they'll realize all the benefits that come with that. They will love you. But he's got to get used to it first.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we got to the top of the hour. I love this. This has been such an amazing conversation. Great topic, Andy, that you brought up. I think this was something maybe sometime in the near future we can revisit, but I hope you guys found value. And if you have any questions, please pop them into the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. And if you have anything, again, if you want us to talk about, or you want us to elaborate on more, if you want us to revisit, just put that in the comments as well. We're always looking to have connection with our audience. And if you like this, what you're hearing, just press the like button, and make sure you share it with your friends. Let's grow the community. This isn't about us. This is about you. Obviously, we want to make
Yep.
sure that the conversations are out there because sometimes it's easier said than done when somebody else says or you say it in your head, but then you don't really truly believe it. So we're bringing to
Yeah.
you some real time stuff. So, but
Yep.
thank you, Andy, so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys again next week. We are going to be diving into short circuit their selfish behavior. Ooh, this is going to be interesting.
Juicy.
I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited for it. So I
Yep.
hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, a great week, and we'll see you next Friday.
Have fun.